Hey y'all, it's Harrison. It's the 15th, doing my update for the 14th. Here are my KPIs. As you can see, I only did around 200 stocks today. I don't really have too much of an excuse other than that. I was super tired today. I guess, 450 was the goal. I think, if I was super on top of my timer, I'd have 250. But that's still 200 off. That's like 4 hours of focus time I didn't do. Part of that is because I was preparing for a meeting with a lawyer, but really I should have been able to do more if I wasn't super tired today. So I'm gonna try to go to bed, take a shower, and go to bed, and wake up at 9 tomorrow. I guess, yeah, didn't land any PRs. I had a really frustrating day doing the implementation of what I was doing today. Here, I'll just turn off this external monitor. I had a really frustrating day, mostly because the feedback loop, and this is really frustrating to me, is the feedback loop for just doing stuff with Claude in the front end, especially on iOS, is just really awful. Because I have to rebuild the app and then give it sort of explain qualitatively some of the transition stuff that is not working to the way that I want it to work. And so I try to explain in English. Obviously, Claude doesn't really understand what I'm saying. And so I also have to sort of like tell it to write out debug logs to sort of like, try to give it additional visibility in terms of understanding what is the issue with my code. And so, it's the feedback loop is actually pretty extremely frustrating, and it feels like today I was going in circles and a lot of stuff. So I had 3 agents running. One was Codex on GPT-5 High. The other was 2 Claudes, both doing different parts of the front end, and it just wasn't working well. So I may have to get one more OpenAI subscription and try to do some front end with GPT-5 rather than Claude. And then maybe I'll use Claude on the back end instead of... okay, actually, one of the front end ones was GPT-5, and that was actually doing well. I had a Claude on the back end and another Claude. The main one that I was working on, large PR, super large PR, working on that. And it was just really hard. So, yeah, I might have to try to do all my front-end work with GPT-5, which is kind of a pain because I don't want to pay $200, and, their limits are pretty ridiculously high for the value that you get for $20. So I'll probably try to manage like 3 or 4 subscriptions. The only issue is that when your session ends or you hit the usage cap, your session basically is locked out, and then you lose all the context that you're doing when you have to switch the new the new GB5 login. There are mitigations for that because you can sort of like you can essentially like tell it, hey, read the git diff of this versus main, and then we'll continue going on from there with like the laundry list of stuff that you're doing. But it does feel a little bit perilous, but I think it's worth it. Perhaps it isn't. It is really just like $150 delta. But, I mean, that's $150, $150. So I am, really getting pretty frustrated. And here's another thing. I think like most SwiftUI code out in the public is just dog shit. And there is actually good UI kit code out in the public. And I think in particular, my particular app infrastructure, which is, largely most of the stuff is written in UIKit at this point, but the base root is SwiftUI, is really starting to get on my nerves. I probably going to have to replace... I think I can replace the tab bar, the SwiftUI tab bar, with a UI kit, UI tab controller. I might have to do that because I do have like a lockable overlay on top of it. That lockable is, again, a UI view controller representable, but it's sort of swapping between that plus the main content view. Um, Essentially, what I'm saying is I'm pretty sure I don't need to rip out all of the SwiftUI. I think the main content app layer with the navigation, like the tab bar, tab view, I can replace with pure UI kit, which is really frustrating because at my previous job when I was speaking to staff iOS engineers, I was like, dude, SwiftUI is so cool, and it was like a lot of the polished stuff that we could do was generally like pretty easy to do in SwiftUI compared to the laborious bits of doing in UIKit. But one, laborious bits of doing in UIKit are actually not laborious anymore at all. Two, and this actually exacerbates, is the quality of the SwiftUI code that you get out is just pure gibberish. At least with Claude, GPT-5 seems okay, but with particularly Claude, it's just really, really not good in my opinion. Takes way too much iteration. I think I may have to pay the cost tomorrow, sort of stall out the other feature work that I'm doing, which I have substantial stuff. And I spoke to my co-founder earlier today. I was like, yo, I need to get this shit done by Sunday. But I might just have to pay this price and just go super hard in terms of stripping out that bullshit, SwiftUI tab bar, and trying to switch to a more like UIKit native thing, because I have all this other stuff, right? Like I have like there's just at one point I integrated Point Free's SwiftUI navigation, Swift navigation, whatever. They're like, first of all, a lot of their stuff is like, oh, your code is more testable because the destination are enums. No one gives a shit about enums and first of all, I do not give a shit about testability. I don't think anyone cares about testability on the front end. You can solve testability in the front end when you have real users with RAID shaking, and also you have like crash monitoring and stuff. So the testability stuff that are advertising on Point Free is really stupid. Stupid is a harsh word. It's really not compelling. Now all the other stuff about like it being an enum and like predictable navigation. Well, first of all, is the navigation transitions in SwiftUI aren't really super customizable the way that I want them to be. So I use this like SwiftUI navigation transition, which I think under the hood actually just type swizzles UI navigation controller and then replaces the transition animations with custom ones that you can compose in like sort of a declarative manner, sort of like SwiftUI. Okay, well, if the boilerplate of writing out these transition first of all, if the underlying implementation is already just a UI navigation controller with navigation transitions, why the fuck am I doing this? If the boilerplate is fairly manageable to write, just because Claude or GPT-5 can get you like 95% of the way on the boilerplate, and then you just need to again do the manual dogfooding. So like that, even that advantage becomes moot. And then, I'm not even using observable for a lot of my stuff because all of my high performance views are like collection views. Okay, well, if they're collection views, then using observable is really stupid because I just usually combine. And then, all the stuff that I did, my previous job is all MVVM with combine. It makes way more sense in terms of the data flow. Okay, then, why do I even need observable, right? Like, I don't, like, observable sets up publishers for me and it just sort of like magically works, but and it actually is fine grained updates, but sometimes I want to debounce the updates because I don't want the updates to be too quick, just because it doesn't really have too much utility. Sometimes I want to be observing on like arbitrary streams. I know there's a way to do it, arbitrary like publisher streams. I know there's ways to do it with observable. It just ends up being like setting up an observable. You have this main actor annotation literally everywhere in your code with observable. And like, okay, you could put it on the top of the view model, but then like, your performance starts suffering, which, actually affects people's perception of the app. So there's all this like extra baggage that I'm pulling out that I'm having to deal with because I'm using SwiftUI. And, I really should have just listened to what the staff engineer said, which is say go with UIKit. I will say there are a couple bits of SwiftUI stuff that I still think are compelling. One is like layer effects and everything. I think what I'll likely do is I'll have the UI tab view controller be the root, but then I will use a UI hosting controller on top of it as the actual view of it. And then the navigation is not a navigation stack from SwiftUI. It's just traditional, navigation present view controllers with iOS. So that's a really long-winded rant about, I'm fucking up. I fucked up and I'm paying the price now. And, if I really, really want to tape this out by the end of the day on Sunday, so I have some build and app review, and then I can start doing my marketing, then, I think I probably have like 5,000 lines of just pure iOS code on the feature work. There's unimplemented server stuff too. So I really, really have to be efficient about it. But, I actually think I probably went in circles for about 3 hours with Claude today on some of the stuff I was trying to do. So, if I think I cut down that time in half by spending 8 hours tomorrow, stripping out all the bullshit SwiftUI, root hierarchy stuff from my app, and then I sort of switch over to UIKit, then I think it might be worth it. But like the thing is, there's literally so much, and like obviously, like the way that I currently have the tab view set up is like I have 3 views Z stacked on top of each other, and they have like a really tuned, really nice looking like blur fade when you swap tabs, and like I'm not immediately sure how you're supposed to get that working in UIKit. I'll have to look that up. And then there's all these other like very custom, like push transitions are on a custom timing curve and everything, and I'll need to re-implement that and really make sure it still feels good. But like, bro, and like it's such a pain. And that'll be Wednesday, and then I'll have Thursday. Well, and then first of all, I got something to do tomorrow night. Thursday I have something to do in the night too. That means, okay, well then I have like basically like 14 hours to work on tomorrow and Thursday combined. Friday, Saturday, Sunday is like, even if I do 12-hour days, which is realistically not going to happen, as you're seeing on a fucking KPI tracker, like, dude, I don't know if I'll be able to do this. Like this is crunch time on a level. But I definitely need to do it because like I've been procrastinating, and things are moving, and I need to move with urgency for this. Like we need to solve this distribution bit, and that is predicated on the product being really fucking solid just immediately. So yeah, I think I might have to just bite the bullet and swap out my UI view representables and everything tomorrow, and pause some of this feature development, just so that, or I'll just land the code and then deal with the fucking mess later after I because I don't want to fucking deal with a merge conflict. That shit would take me 45 minutes to fucking resolve. Fuck that, dude. Anyways, I think you could tell today was a frustrating day. It was a frustrating day because that, and then also like a lawyer didn't give me the answer that I wanted. It's obviously all reasonable. Everything they say is reasonable, but it's not like the best like answer with some sort of plan. Got a fucking meeting tomorrow to talk to some other external people. It's total pain. Anyways, at least I won't go to the gym tomorrow. But fucking at night I got 5 hours of shit, family stuff. So anyways, I need to take a shower, go to bed. This was a rant, kind of therapeutic to be honest, talking to a camera, ranting about iOS and general woes. I guess it's part of the process, and I am still confident in my ability to ship something that is just strictly better than anything else in the market by a significant margin. So we will keep pushing. And tomorrow, if I wake up, it's probably going to be 9:30 at this point because it's 12:25 now. If I wake up after a good night of sleep, I am optimistic about my mood tomorrow, and that will be okay. By the way, I noticed when I'm looking at myself on camera, when my lips are dry, the amount I can open my mouth when I'm smiling is, first of all, it's lopsided, but second of all, it's it's also way smaller than when my mouth is not dry. That's Accutane and not drinking enough water, I guess. So, okay, peace. I'll see you tomorrow.